First, let me say what a surprise this game was. I did not expect to play this game, it wasn't even on my radar. But I watched David Jackson from PlayStation Access play it as part of its release, and it was coming out on PS Plus. And me, being 60 plus hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, kind of wanted a little break. Thus, Dave's oxygen tank ended up being right when and where I needed it. Oh, come on, that was a good joke. Dave the Diver has a story that's kind of whatever. The characters are silly and over the top, and everything is pretty ridiculous. So much so that it ends up being just kind of fun, but also a little forgettable. They introduced loads of characters, each of them adding some sort of mechanic to the gameplay loop, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. I don't remember almost any names aside from a few that you see over and over. You have the sushi chef who just cares about wanting to make new and interesting and good tasting sushi. Tech guy who's obsessed with anime girls and figures. College girl who, you know what, I don't even remember what she cared about. But they're all there to just kind of build up the world and give an addition to the gameplay. But it's all pretty quick and you can skip a lot of it, so you can get back to what makes the game, the loop. Now, before I get into the weeds, I think it's important to note that I definitely think this is a time and place kind of game. Had I tried to play this when I was really wanting a, good big open world RPG or a huge story, then I don't think I would have enjoyed it. But because I'm in the middle of having played several big RPGs, in the middle of Rebirth, which I love, but is a giant RPG, and having played several other big ones in a row, this little game found its spot for me. I needed, without even knowing it, a game that was one that required my brain to kind of only focus on strategy of the gameplay and not on a complex story or characters or themes. I think that often games are like that, where it requires a player to be in a headspace that fits with that game to truly enjoy it. Being who I am, and I know that I should and probably will enjoy a bunch of these games that I haven't played before. Witcher 3 is a prime example, but when I went to play it years ago, I had already either beaten, finished, or tried out several huge open world games. And I just couldn't get behind another one. Not because it wasn't good, but because I wasn't ready for it. I know that it's my kind of game, and one day I will play it, and I'm sure I will love it. But I just couldn't do another one at the time. Ultimately, the way that we feel about a game isn't just about the game itself. It's where we are as a player in that particular moment in life, and whether the game intersects with us at the right moment or not. I don't mean to say that everything is subjective, that there aren't objectively good and bad aspects of a game, because I do think there are. But even an objectively great game could be bad to us, or we might not enjoy it if it comes at the wrong moment. And the same the other way, an objectively bad game, if it hits at just the right moment, you could have a good feeling about that game. There's lots of times where people talk about wishing they could go back and play something for the first time, and I actually don't buy into that. And the reason is for this, because it was a time and place that made that game mean something to us. And if you did it again without it fitting in at just the right moment, it would not feel the same way. I heard on a podcast recently where they talked about this very thing and games that meant something to them, and all of them were connected to something that happened in their life at the time. And it made me think of those games. I remember playing Dragon's Dogma, the original, when I was going through really, really tough time, and having to focus on what I'm doing in that game, the memories that come with that, make that game stick out. Would I have loved the game as much if it was a different time? I don't think so. And so all of that to say, this is something I think we need to always remember when we're looking at a game and how good or not it is, why we might like certain games or not. All of that to say, games are meant to be fun. So if a game's not fitting for you, don't be afraid to walk away. It's okay to have a game you think or even know that you'll like and walk away to come back when you're in the right headspace for it. All right, enough with all the preamble stuff. Let's get to the game. The essential loop in Dave the Diver is diving during the day. You have a morning and an afternoon where you can dive, you catch fish, explore the water. Then at night you come back and you work at a sushi bar. Usually you're kind of like a server. You help clean up, you pour drinks, you deliver the food. So something similar to like Moonlighter, if you've played that. And honestly, those two elements alone are enough to probably hold you 10, 20 plus hours, depending on how much you click with it. I loved that loop all by itself and could have done it for a long time. But the game doesn't stop there. It continuously adds new mechanics, new areas, new fish to catch, new reasons to search for things, new ways to interact with the environment. And that loop, plus these new doors that are opening nearly every time you dive, makes saying one more day all the more prevalent. I found myself thinking over and over and over again, oh, I'll just one more day and I'll go to bed. Only to realize that I've done 3 or 4 more days, stayed up several hours past what I meant to, and now I'm going to bed with 3 or 4 hours of sleep. It was so good, so addicting, it can be ridiculously hard to put down. Now, a small sidebar here before talking deeper about those elements is that this game just looks so freaking good. The sushi bar and the mini cutscenes and stuff, those are fine. They're good. They didn't blow me away as much, but they're still good. They have cool character movements and they're very stylish in the way they do it. And they have good humor throughout the game, so all of that's good stuff. But when you're in the water, this game is gorgeous. It's so vibrant and full of life, from the fish to the plant life, both things that you can interact with and things that you cannot. It's just breathtaking, absolutely incredible. Multiple moments in this game where I just would like stop and go, wow, that looks incredible. Just really, really good stuff. Okay, back on track now. In Dave the Diver, you have a harpoon, which is like your primary catching device, and also can serve to do damage. You get guns that, somehow work underwater, because why not? I don't know. But it's fun and silly, so who cares? And then you have a melee weapon. You have a dagger that you always have, and then when you're in the water, you can get new ones. Those only last for the dive, though. There is some light roguelite elements in this game. They're not heavy, it's not prevalent, but there are some for sure. As you progress, you will be able to upgrade several things, including your harpoon, oxygen level, so a bigger oxygen tank, which also serves as your health bar. When you get hit, it takes away oxygen, so you don't have multiple things you're worried about. It's just one. Your carrying capacity, which is super important, and your suit, which allows you to go deeper, which you will have to do to progress the story. You'll find new weapons and additional upgrades to your harpoon, or elements to your gun, or like I said, items or like melee weapons. Those though will only be with you for that dive. When you finish, whether it's you die, which you don't really die in this game, but you lose all your oxygen and go back to the boat, or you leave on your own, those things stay there. You won't maintain those. You can find spare oxygen as you're swimming. So essentially, you're running out, there's these tanks and different things around the water that you can find that will refill all of your oxygen. And part of that, so like I talked about, you don't die in this game, but if you run out of oxygen, you are taken out of the water, go back to the boat, but you can only keep one thing with you. So one fish, one item you picked up, that's it. Everything else disappears. And that's going to be really important because sometimes you need items to complete a story. Sometimes you're collecting things to complete a side quest or whatever. And so you're going to want to be paying attention to your oxygen, making sure you can get out. Along with those oxygen tanks, there are also these kind of special spots that they call like a escape pod, essentially. And so you go there and you can use it to just leave the water from right there, as opposed to trying to swim all the way up. And so when you use that, you get to keep all of your stuff. So those are important. Partly, you got to remember too, in the beginning of the game, your dives are going to be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. But as you get farther in the game and have a bigger oxygen tank and are stronger and have more stuff, I had dives last 45 minutes. So it's important for you to manage your inventory. I constantly was chucking stuff I didn't really need and keeping the things I wanted, trying to manage my weight. You can go over your weight limit, but first you'll get heavy, and then you're slower swimming around, and then you'll get full. And when that's complete overload, that means you can't pick up anything else, and you are really, really slow, which makes it hard to run from anything that might attack you. Yeah, and it really sucks if you run out of oxygen when you're full and have a bunch of stuff for all of your quests that you've gathered to have to pick only one. So, or you're gonna wanna manage that and do well. There are loads of different fish, including hostile ones, okay? Ones that attack you when they see you. So there are like sharks and stuff that attack you, or some dangerous fish or whatever. And so that plays into that being overloaded. If you're really slow, it's tough to get away from those, and they will make you run out of oxygen, and then you lose all your stuff. So the loot game is a constant grind, and I actually really love that. It was a fun, just a small mechanic of managing your loot. It was good stuff. But all of that to say, you're gonna want to be consistently upgrading what you have to last longer, take the things you need, and bring them up. Some fish you won't be able to just catch with the harpoon, so you'll have to damage them first. Some of them you might have to do like a mini game or almost like a QTE, a time button presses or some kind of mini game to get the fish. Some you can just kill, or some you even have to just kill, and then you can gather from there. There are other catching devices you can get as you go through the game, but I don't want to spoil those here. And then all of that, you get different quality of fish. There's 1 to 3 stars. Now what that means though is just how much like meat you get out of it, right? So if a small fish, maybe 1 star is 1 meat, 2 stars 2, 3 stars 3, so on, right? Different grade of fish gives you more or less meat out of that, which you will need to then bring to your restaurant later. From there, the game will add more and more mechanics that you can use to your advantage. Some for the diving, some for the sushi bar. The developer did such a bang-up job making it interesting and fun to dive and catch fish, then try to sell more and more to make more and more money, to then use that money for upgrades so that you can fish better and faster to get better ingredients, to get more and more fish to then take back up to sell for more money, and on and on and on the loop goes. It is incredibly satisfying, super, super good. Then they add in little things like customers who have a specific order, or a party night where if you get enough of the right kind of ingredient or dish, then you can sell for a lot more money. There are a bunch of other additions that I don't want to give away, that you can find as you go, but the point is that the game is consistently and constantly evolving and changing, adding more and more ways to utilize that basic loop of fishing, selling, and upgrading. So good. Now, on top of that fantastic loop, there's a mystery to the game. Something weird happens right away, opening cutscene, and then that kind of sparks a loose story, but kind of the plot, and that's what drives you to go deeper and find more and explore more of the water. Now, this part of the game was surprisingly fun. As it added new mechanics under the water, gave a reason and structure to the expansion of the diving area, and it was legitimately fun to find out the mystery and see what would happen next. They did it with great humor that never felt too serious or overdone, just like a reason for you to dive deeper and go farther. That said, if you're not in a place to handle kind of like cheese and ridiculous stuff, silly, stupid dialogue, that kind of thing, then you might want to wait until you are in a place for that. a lot of it isn't meaningful or heavy hitting or emotional or anything like that. It's just kind of fun and silly. I found it enjoyable at this time, but just something to note. On the sushi side, at first it's learning the mechanics of serving at the restaurant, but it quickly turns into like a small management sim. I enjoy that kind of thing, but it took me like 15-ish, 20 hours maybe, before I realized you could grate the wasabi, and that's kind of important. So they probably could have done a little bit better of explaining that, like how that works. They didn't explain any of it. So eventually I saw a little arrow on the right side of the screen that I just missed and didn't know that that meant I could do anything. I just had never gone over there. It's in a weird spot. And so I think a little bit more explanation would have been good, but otherwise it was good and fun. The story moves at your pace. Essentially, you'll get like a quest of getting something, and you can dive over and over and over and over doing everything else instead and not that, and the story just won't progress. You'll just keep going the loop. But if you want to just kind of go through it, you can just make sure that every time you dive, you're going after that thing, and other things take the back seat, and then you will progress the story pretty quickly. So I spent a lot more time in this game than I expected, but I do think I could have gone much faster had I prioritized those main quests a little bit more. I mean that and, not died in a few crucial moments. The game gives you a smartphone with apps to manage all of the different stuff, and it works pretty well. It uses something we all know and use today, and so it is really intuitive. The downside, and one I wish there was an answer for, is that you can't use it while diving, which of course makes sense for obvious reasons, but when you have no way to check what you're looking for, what you want out of the dive, you have to just kind of remember it. So you're left to either try to remember it on your own or write it down like physically in real life on paper or something. You can like highlight 3 quests and it'll give you like what you need to finish those. But like if you wanted upgrade materials to, fix up your gun or whatever, that's not on there. So you just have to remember. And so if you have a lot of those things you're trying to look for, which especially like the middle chunk of the game, like I was looking for like 10 different groups of things. And when you can't check under the water, you're like, I don't know if that's what I need. And now you can always toss it, but it's still kind of annoying. So it would have been nice if there was some way you could have kept that. And if there was somewhere, I didn't see it. I don't know. But all of that said, that's pretty much the game. Personally, I was so invested that by the time I finished the main story, I took a look at the trophy list and thought, why not? And so I went on and got the platinum for it. I don't do that very often in any game, but this took me like 40 hours, which was way more than I expected to put in. I was thinking like 10, 15 I would do, but it just hooked me and I just kept playing. It gave me such a sense of wonder and discovery while keeping things light and humorous. It was the perfect side quest to my typical larger main story games. So if you, like me, need something to kind of break up the massive RPGs or are feeling the need for a game that is more mechanics based than story based, Dave the Diver is a pretty darn good bet, and I definitely recommend it. Alright guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you hit that like button. That helps me out a ton. Also, if you're new, consider subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.